Before that, though, time to have a look at the headlines making the news this Monday morning with the help of Mathew Wright, who's here in the studio, and Julia Hartley Brewer, who's down the line. Good morning to both of you. So let's start off with this. I mean, wow, this is quite exciting, isn't it? Darling hugs of May. Hugs will be, again, allowed from next Monday, as Boris Johnson is set to announce the next stage of lifting the lockdown will go ahead as planned on the 17th of May. So how is this going to work? You have to socially distance, but you are allowed to hug who?
Friends and family is the suggestion. And social distancing, I guess we have to maintain social distancing indoors. I mean, I must admit, I'm now getting confused.
Well, this has confused me a little bit.
I'm now confused. But we do know the vaccination programme is a roaring success. Now, 1 in 3 adults have had both jabs. Deaths from COVID, well, are still occurring. I think we're down to 2, I think, per week, as a daily average. Everything is moving in the right directions, and we're on course first for May the 17th. And God willing, come the end of June, we're back to normal.
Yeah, I thought June the 21st was hugs. I thought 17th of May was you can have people indoors. And the hospitality opens indoors. So this has confused me a little bit this morning, Julia. So I can hug... Holly is a friend, close friend, so I can hug Holly, but I can't sit next to her?
We're going to have to do the show hugging.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't meet with 5 other people in the pub, but God forbid. Look, an awful lot of people, millions of people, law-abiding citizens who care desperately about the health and the lives of their loved ones have been hugging for a very long time, including my family. Now, not at the peak, not with those before their jabs, over 70 plus. I think lots of people have been actually taking a very common sense, practical attitude towards this. But I think the return of hugging is a fantastic thing for people to just realise that this is such an important part of human existence. Babies and children that don't receive physical comfort from their mum and dad in the early months and years of their lives are damaged forever. And I'll tell you what, lots of people think it's going to be very strange. It won't be. After the first hug, you're going to be going around hugging everybody. I was abroad at Christmas, and the first people we met up with, friends, I've got an old college friend out, and they had a party. We turned up, all these people I didn't know came up and hugged. And the most disconcerting thing for the first couple of minutes. And then you think, oh, this is lovely. Touching people is really nice. It's what human beings do. And I think as long as both people are happy to do it, no one is at high risk. We've got very low prevalence of COVID. I think we need to get back to normal. And human beings...
We're both consenting adults, so we can hug.
I think there's an element...
So as long as both adults agree that it's OK
I think there's an element of truth and reality to that. Yesterday, unfortunately, my mother-in-law has to come up to her funeral from Devon, and all the trains were cancelled, so you had people that booked on one train with their seats socially distanced, with empty seats, and then hundreds of other people who, through no fault of their own, have no train. They go on this train, and they're all shoulder to shoulder, standing up, no socially distancing at all. While everybody sat down is socially distanced with empty seats, and eventually somebody said, well, I've been vaccinated. Have you been vaccinated? Yes. Well, do you mind awfully if I sit down on this seat? I'm 80 and I don't really want to be on a train all day. And I think there is an element now that if we have a conversation, particularly amongst adults of a certain age where it's likely you've been vaccinated, like Jude, I'm finding it very difficult to sort of say, oh, you can't do that anymore. We've got to move forward.
There's certain things that are also likely to be announced: overnight stays, which would be a good one. With another household, the reopening of hotels, cinemas, museums, theatres. A cap on the number of mourners who are allowed at funerals could also be lifted. But only 30 will be able to attend weddings and wakes. I think, you know, with everything that we've seen going on at the moment, I think it's almost inhumane.
I'm not going to my uncle-in-law's funeral today because I'm in excess of the close family of 30. So, yeah, it's difficult.
I know, and that's hard.
Yeah.
But we had a family wedding. My brother got married, just 15 people, and I was very, very lucky that parents and siblings and other halves exactly equaled 15. It's quite a cunning way of getting out of those awkward. Oh, I'm ever so sorry, couldn't squeeze you on the list. But there are tens of thousands of couples who are waiting to get married because of all the limitations, and funerals have been so difficult for so many people. We saw with the Queen and Prince Philip. I mean, just absolutely heart-rending looking at her on her own and so few people able to attend. And I just think, again, not COVID deniers. It's a serious disease. I was very worried about my parents during both of the peaks and other family members, as we all have been about it. Everyone's vulnerable. But we've got this amazing vaccination rollout. 17 million people in this country, the most vulnerable, the oldest, the most sick, have had 2 vaccinations of vaccines that are miracles of scientific and wonderful ingenuity. And people are as safe as they are going to be. We have to get back to normal life. We have to get back to learning to live with what is now an endemic disease that for most of us is not going to be a killer. And I really just think we should be embracing the success of the vaccine rather than still being so afraid and so cautious. If some people want to wear masks and don't want to hug and want to not go out, that's fine. We'll try and coax them into having a bit more of a fuller life. But I think the rest of us should be allowed to get back to normal. Frankly, today, not May 17th and not June the 21st.
Well, a lot of people obviously starting to think maybe about holidays and can they go away and what will be the restrictions and where can they go and what rules will they have to follow. And there's talk of sort of 10 hours delay when you come back from your holiday at airports. But I think a lot of people were thinking, right, OK, well, maybe I can get tested and everything will be OK. Free NHS lateral flow tests may not be approved for green list holidaymakers to use before departure amid concerns about their effectiveness. These are the lateral flow tests of which we've spent sort of billions of pounds of taxpayers' money on them, and they are... The difficulty is if they're used by medics, trained medics, the actual success rate, the accuracy of them is very, very good. The trouble is when they're not used by trained medics, the accuracy rate drops on, I think, it's false negatives to 58%. That's the problem there. Although I actually have an additional problem, which is using the NHS to provide you for essentially a free test to go on holiday. I'm not sure that's exactly the correct use of NHS resources, so you'll have to have a PCR test instead. Well, a holiday is a choice, it's a luxury, and it's not necessarily a medical right. So, no, I don't think you're not being treated for something, you're trying to use NHS funds to have a private holiday.
But we've got millions of these tests anyway. It seems to be
very accurate, so that's the problem.
It's vital we're told to keep people safe travelling in and out of the country. You've got to remember, this isn't just about some people being able to sort of go off on a week on the beach. A lot of families, thousands and thousands of families in this country, have got family abroad, close family members, parents, grandparents, siblings, who they've not seen for a year and a half. I mean, a lot of people are really, really desperately missing those people, and they want to be able to go abroad. And the cost of these tests, you know, if you can't get the free lateral flow and you have to pay for the PCR. Look, back in October, these PCR tests were £200. They're now going down to as little as 60 in cases of some holiday companies, Chewy, just £20. But for most families going abroad, just the cost of the tests alone make it impossible. And I don't think holidays are a human right. But I do think they are something that a lot of people spend all year working towards, and they do have a right to be able to
flying abroad is not a human right, and you can't use NHS resources to allow for people to make private trips abroad, however desperate. If you can afford to take a family of four for £1,000, what do I see? Lisbon is £500 each way. So you take a family of four to Portugal for £4,000 or whatever, then you can afford to pay a couple of £100 to get your family tested and leave the NHS to treat all those people with cancer you've been so worried about for the last 14 months.
It's not I didn't say it, I said exactly, it's not a human right, but it is something. If we regard travel in and out of the country as a risk, and there's good reason to believe that to people who aren't vaccinated that it is a risk, you know, in terms of importing new variants, then it makes sense to have those travel procedures in place with tests. But then don't make it a huge expense. Don't say that rich people can travel in and out, but poor people can't. That's not fair.
But if the government, of course, has spent billions of pounds on tests that were actually useful, we wouldn't be in this position now.
New laws must be used to make sure online platforms protect their users from scams, the government has warned. And this would protect consumers from an avalanche of scams that are causing devastating financial and emotional harm. Martin Lewis has added the policing of scams is critically underfunded, leaving criminals to get away with these frauds with impunity. He was a very vigorous campaigner against them after his image was used to advertise products as a scam. We've both been used online. I've seen my face advertising Bitcoin, which I've
handed over £8.5 to somebody that wasn't my builder on an online scam, and to the person I handed the money over to, I had a name and a bank account detail, and to this date I can't get the police or the bank to go and talk to this man and find out where my money's gone. Because, as the police said, he may be a victim of crime. And I said, well, if he is, you could knock on his door and at least ask him. I mean, I think Martin's been an absolute hero
he really
on this.
Has.
It's a massive problem, and I think he's right that the real issue is the underfunding of the police. The scale of the problem is so huge, and if we are going to allow people to have justice, then we're going to have to find a way of...
Julia, they're incredibly clever.
Yeah.
They're incredibly... sophisticated, and often when people have been a victim of a scam, they don't like to tell the police or even their own families because they feel embarrassed. How could I have fallen for that? Well, the reason you fell for it is because these people are really clever. I've actually had the opposite issue from Mathew, is I had payments to my builder stopped because they thought it was a scam. And I called up the fraud department and they were going, no, we think it's a scam. And I said, well, it's a very, very, very sophisticated scam because they're digging up my garden right now. And if they're digging a very large hole, so I'm putting a lot of effort in for people who apparently are scamming me.